you know.
Do one of yours.
One of yours, Andy. Come on.
No, you see, this is one you might have heard, Dave, because you're frequently in Vulcan Studios like I am.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're the only ones keeping Vulcan Studios open, really, at the moment.
Yeah.
Free mention for Barry Thomas.
It is a great place.
Hang on. Oh,
What?
hang on.
Oh, I'm seeing Ian's name.
Yeah! Good evening.
Hang on, I'm going to come off the phone. Hang on.
Yeah. Andrew, just hang on a sec while I get the Facebook Live thing going. Oh, it should be going. Let me just check it's working. Hold on.
Hello, can you hear me?
There he
Hello.
is.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, I can't see any of you, but I can see myself. So, right. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good evening, Ian.
I'm terribly sorry. I am the most stupidest man at technology. I am so sorry.
You haven't met
No,
me yet.
I mean, look, if anyone's going to be accused of being a Luddite, Ian, it would be me.
Oh,
It'd have to be me.
No, God, no. If you'd have seen
I'm the
what I was
Luddite
trying to
one.
do,
Ian,
I was trying to do,
there'd be
you'd
enough
hit me
final
round the
there
head.
for you to. There'd be enough final there for you to do your records for 5 years.
This is just a portion of my books. all the vinyls in another room.
Oh, by the way, just for the record, Dave McCluskey's ordered a Just Eat.
Oh,
So that's why he's off screen.
Oh, he's gone for that, has he? Yeah.
He's gone for
Yeah.
the door.
Julie, could you just
I
dive
can't
onto
see.
Facebook and check it is going out? It won't
I
let me.
can't. I can't see Micah, Alban, and Julie.
They're
No,
up
but
at the
hello,
top.
George.
Yes, if we say something, then we are
Oh.
probably for you in the middle screen. So probably you will see me now.
What's that?
Nay.
When somebody talks, their screen might be the one that you see. Or,
Can you see
are you
everyone
on
now?
Yeah.
Right, I can see Micah. Yes.
Okay. Across the top right-hand corner
Hello,
of the Ian, at the top right-hand corner of the bit with all the pictures on.
Yes.
There should be a thing that says view. If you click
Yes.
on that, you'll get grid view.
I've got speaker view, gallery view.
Yeah, gallery view.
Gallery
is-
view.
Gallery
that's the
view's
one.
better.
Mm.
Yeah.
You could have 8 panels.
By the way, before anything else, for Micah, for my friend
No.
Micah.
I did something as well.
Why? Oh, I.
I did warn you it was a bit hot.
I'll join in.
Oh, hello, hello, Alban. Hello,
Hello.
and hello, Julie. I can see you now. Hi.
It's
Back
glad,
to-
I'm glad to hear that our reputations are not going to survive this Zoom call.
Probably
Of course
not.
they are. Of course they are. Now, bear in mind, we are now live on Facebook, as far as I'm aware. Okay.
Hello, world.
Yeah.
Behave.
So Andrew's going to play us a song, Ian, and then we'll do
Okay.
our introduction to your good self after that. And the
Okay.
ghost of McCluskey might appear. Doesn't he look like some sort of spectral vision down there?
He does. It looks like something out of Sapphire and Steel.
Yeah. So we should all mute. We should all mute ourselves.
I'm
And
not sure
then,
you're on Facebook, Tony. I can't
Is
see
it or
the
not?
icon. I can't see the icon on top.
Okay, let's have
But,
another go at that.
Another go.
Strange. Okay, that's live on
And for
Facebook.
Ian, to mute, you need to be on the left bottom side.
Me?
No,
Yeah.
no, on the
Oh.
whole screen, there should be a
Mm.
mute. And it's got make
Yeah.
my audio, and you can press on it to mute.
Who, me? Sorry. Yeah.
Just carry on talking for 1 minute. Facebook's decided to open itself up now. So let me go live. Okay. So in theory, in about 2 secs, we should be live on Facebook. Then we can pretend we know what we're doing, and we can pretend that we know where we're going.
I've never known what I'm doing.
I know, just as well, really, isn't it? Okay, so it appears that we're now live. Oh, okay. Well, we look like we're live on my Tony Higginson page, which is okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Ian, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
play something then.
I think we'll put you on speaker view, and please, if you'd treat us to a tune, that would be lovely.
Okie dokie. Now this has got two things going for it. One is that it was the first time I'd ever had a record of my own song made. I had a single made by a firm called Vinyl Tap, and he actually took the masters and made a 7-inch single. So it's one that's in the collection. You know, I don't know who my grandchildren or great grandchildren will be, but I can imagine them going through that and going, "You didn't tell us you'd done that." But I did. I'm not sure how clear this is going to be. I'll try. I remember your beauty. I remember your innocence. I remember your fantasy. Once I saw you in a courtyard, all in white, you wore flowers. Your moment was meant to be. Nothing ever rushed you, but joy always touched you. You gave it all you could give. All seems so tragic, the loss of your magic, but we're grateful for your life. One to the future, all seems uncertain, but you're dead in mind. Forgot the words. When you left today, you feel so far away, but you took your steps so lightly. If we should meet once more, here or a distant shore, I hope you're happy with that chance to take your hand again, let you be a star again, and join you in your dance. And join you in your dance. Yes, we would. And join you in your dance.
Hurrah! We enjoyed that. That was a good way of starting. So now we're all here. We are all here, aren't we? David, you keep quiet down there, McCluskey.
You're asking the impossible.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, now we're all present and correct, and welcome to those on Facebook. We'll make sure I pop onto the business page in a minute and tell them to pop across to the personal page, but it's there for future reference, really. The idea of this, which George and Julie and I came up with a while ago, was to find friends who have written things, really, books or songs or poems, that sort of stuff, and invite them along and give them a little bit of a spotlight and find out a bit more about what they've done, why they've done it, and when we can, as we've done tonight, which we're going to do in a second, find a few bits of music that sort of suit the purpose. So tonight's guest is a wonderful chap. He's called Ian D. Hall. For years I knew him, and I didn't ever ask him what the D stood for, but I do know. Isn't that daft? You know, it's right in front of you on the screen. You never ask, do you?
I once said, somebody asked me that in university, what does the D stand for? And I said, anything it damn well pleases.
Ah, well, that's a better answer than my dad's name. And I'm sat there thinking, what's his dad's name? I don't know. Which is the obvious stupid answer, isn't it? So one thing oh no, we didn't want to do that one. Hold on. Start that again. Okay.
Hang on, I'll just alter. It's a gallery thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So bear with me, cause my music.
Oh, you started screen sharing.
Yeah, I know, because I'm meant to be playing some music, but for some stupid reason, my music app has disappeared. It was here before. I don't know where it's gone now. Tell you what, E, you talk while I have a little play.
Well, ask me a question, Tony. Ask me a question.
No, I meant with one of the other people while I'm reloading me.
Well, it's just so nice to actually. Do you know what? This is actually the most I've actually seen of anybody in almost 11 months.
Well, it's great to see you, mate.
Because for many different reasons, I've not seen anybody since March the 3rd. I've seen bin men, I've seen the recycling guys, and I've seen Tony on there because he's been very, very good. You know, he's been incredibly good to been very good to us to get the shopping and bits and pieces in and get rid of stuff for us this last year. So I've got to admit, if it wasn't for Tony, we probably wouldn't have seen anybody of note for the last.
Is the music playing?
No, Tony.
No? Okay. I don't know what.
But aside from that, you know, it's just it's so good to see you all, to be honest with you. So thank you very much for inviting me into your room. And I'm sorry you had to wait for me because I'm stupid. It was the first ever time I'd used Zoom. I went through the run through with Tony earlier, and as always with my life, no matter how much I practice, I blew it up completely. so I do apologise for that.
I've got a display here.
Well, it was challenging for me as well, Ian, to join in because I've not used Zoom before. This is my first time as well.
Yeah.
And so I copied the link that I got from Tony. I got a login number, so I punched it in, and then it said, make an account. And I'm like, okay. So I had to do some tech-savvy thingies as well before I could join. So
yeah.
It worked out.
It did. I just felt very stupid for a while, so that's not a problem.
No, it's not.
I'm used to feeling stupid.
Yeah. What you're seeing now, what you're experiencing now, is something that people work every day, experience every day. So this is my normal thing I do every day for work.
Is the music playing now?
Yep.
It is, yeah.
Right, so we're going to stop sharing that because, as usual, we've done the usual trick of messing it up slightly. So let's get back to the real business of talking.
Sounds like they've fallen downstairs, Tony.
What? Does it? Okay, can you hear me or not? Can you hear me? Ian, are you there?
Guys, I'm staying in the meeting. I'm just going to hear. That'll probably make someone just feel.
Yes, I'm here.
You just won't be able to see me.
Okay, so I don't know I know what happened when I had Groove open before. I had it set up to share the audio. For some reason, it took itself off my desktop. So I had to do that thing where you enable the sound again. Anyway, let's not worry about that. That was Ghost Town by the Specials. Ian used to live probably not that far from them, I would imagine.
I used to work not far from them as well.
Yeah.
When I worked in Coventry for a while.
The song. It might be nothing to do with the book.
Well, no, it's not. It's just one of those memories from 1981. You know, I was an impressionable 10-year-old, as you are when you're 10. And it was actually what was going on in Birmingham at the time, as well as Liverpool and Toxteth, I guess, and London and other places. My dad, being the gentleman that he is, didn't want me growing up in that particular environment, which is one of the reasons why we moved to Bicester in Oxfordshire, which leads into the book, to be honest with you. Because I went from I went from a huge big city to this. Well, it's not small, but a small town of about 25 to 30,000 people who knew everything about you within a moment of you opening your mouth. And of course, I spoke with a very broad Birmingham accent at the time.
Well, give us a blast.
So, what of my accent? If I put it back on,
yeah,
you're right there, Tony. How you doing? Like,
that's
I
not
can't
bad,
do
is
it
it?
anymore. You say.
Can you keep that up for the whole week?
Unless I'm talking to my dad, I can't keep it up very well. If I'm talking to my dad, he comes out, but yeah, I try not to do that anymore.
Oh, should we make him do the whole interview with the accent? What do we think?
No, please, because then I will need subtitles.
That's a fair point. The obvious and the sense comes in. Yeah. So obviously, what we're going to do is we're going to do a very brief introduction, and then Ian very kindly has agreed to read an extract from his new book. Have you not?
I have.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, which is a mixture of all of you really, Ian started out, as far as I'm aware, as a reviewer, not a critic. He'll tell you why himself later. As a reviewer, he, like all of us, he had a love for things, whether it be films or concerts or records or film, lots of different things. And having enjoyed some of it, he made the obvious deduction that if he told other people something about it, they might agree with him. They might even sort of say, well, I didn't know anything about such and such a band or such and such a film. And in a way, he's built up a huge following, which he'll be very modest about. But he gets like over 1 million hits on his website, which is liverpoolsoundandvision.co.uk. People all around the world know Ian, and they all respect and love what he says about music, books, film, anything really.
There's a line from a Tony Hancock half hour there on the Radio Ham. Friends all over the world, none in this country, but all over the world.
Well, maybe that's true. Maybe it's better to be internationally famous than nationally famous. Well, I first also met Ian because I love poetry. A few weeks ago, George and Alban and I shared some poetry. We just had an impromptu one of these, just the three of us, and we chatted away and shared poems and stories. And Ian, almost the first thing I knew about him really was that he wrote poetry. In fact, I'm hoping later on he might even do a piece for us. But obviously, we want to promote what people are doing now as well as tell people about the other stuff they do. And Ian's got a brand new book out. I think it only came out 1st of December, is that about right?
30th of November, 1st of December, yeah.
Yeah. So just in time for Christmas. And in fact, it did do quite well before Christmas. I think giving away a signed cover print and postcards and things just added a little something extra for people. And we were getting orders nearly every day, weren't we, right through December?
Yeah.
Really, really good. So I am one of the lucky ones that got to see Ian nearly every day, really. I'd be ringing up saying, hey, I've got another order for so-and-so, and if you need any beans or cheese, I'll pop to Tesco on the way round. So I was picking him up the bits he didn't get delivered, having a chat, and he was signing books, which we were posting off to, America, Holland, Netherton. There was even someone in Netherton that ordered the book, and they got it hand delivered, so I saved £2. I think I paid postage on that one. So
I'm sure I gave you that £2, Tony.
Did you know?
That's how I say, buddy, let's all move to Copy Lane.
Yeah, it's something like that.
I've stayed there before today.
So anyway, the first thing...
Actually, if you all moved to Bootle, then I could actually see some of you from time to time. That would be nice.
I know, but this is a nice way of... I mean, I'm glad Ian's managed to embrace technology, because he was a bit reticent about doing this, and we were just going to do a recording and share the recording type thing. And I said, but you won't realise how nice it is to see the face of someone else, even me. Mike is smiling up there because it's nice to see other people, isn't it? It's a nice thing, isn't it?
I must admit, one of the last people I actually saw before lockdown was in 2019. And it was when I said I was not going to do any more public performances of poetry because it was just becoming too much of a strain on my back. And Andrew very kindly, along with John Chatterton and I think it was Ellen and Ellie, came along and played some music to go with the night. I couldn't go back to doing performance because it's just too painful with the old spine, and I throw myself too much into it, and I end up in bed for nearly 5 or 6 days afterwards. So it's nice to see Andrew again. So thank you for that, Andrew.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's the nice thing about this sort of thing that George and Julie came up with is we can all find a few people we know and invite them along, and hopefully in the future more people will join in. But the main thing is, I think, is to give you all a little flavour, because I know Dave likes a few scary things. I mean, going by his music taste, let alone his film.
You can't say anything about David's music taste because
is he eating brains again? Are you eating
me and Ian share quite a few favourites there, don't we, Ian?
We do. I won't say there is nothing wrong with David's taste in music. David's got a great taste.
He has. No, I know. I like quite a lot what he likes, but he likes some stuff that I've never heard of.
Oh, you wait till tomorrow's choice that I'm going to put up. I'll give you a brief glimpse. Only David might know it, but tomorrow I've been doing like an album of the day for the last year and a bit, and tomorrow I'm playing Behemoth.
Oh,
David,
yeah.
Behemoth,
George,
yeah.
Mean anything to you? No.
I saw them at Monsters of Rock, I think.
Aren't they great?
Donington.
Yeah, Castle Donington, yeah.
So
it's my album of the day for tomorrow. It is was album.
This was blooming heck. That's got to be worth something. That's got to be worth something, Andrew. It's got to be worth a fortune.
No, I'll tell you what it was. A friend of mine appeared on it, and if it hadn't been for that little kid who had the bunny head on, I was like, right, guys. If it hadn't been for him, he'd have actually been on the programme. He's in the background of one, and he's got a very poor recording of it. So isn't it terrible? There's a bloke my age. He's nearing retirement from work. What's the one impact you made on life? Is it during your time as a lecturer at Edgehill University? No, it was appearing on Tiswell's in the background while he threw buckets of water over some up and Bartby's bank.
Right, guys. So if we can all mute,
burning like fire.
So if we all mute ourselves, I'm going to put Ian on speaker view, and Ian is going to read us a little extract of Ghost Apples. Are you ready, Ian?
Sort of. There we go. I don't know if you can all see me. All I can see in my corner is Andrew doing that, and he's frozen. So I don't know if you can all see me, to be fair. Little bit of info. I'm not starting from the beginning of the chapter because there's too much information. So we're doing from a moment where a young lad is in his shed and sees this. I don't want to give too much away, but sees this apparition from the start. Okay. A noise from outside the shed. Slithery. The sound of wet leather being thrown in a raging fire. The noise had been loud enough to overpower the music on his Walkman, and he took off his earphones. Imagination running riot. He looked out of the window, but a mist had enveloped the shed, shrouding the darkness of the approaching night. Tom was not given to being alarmed by the sudden and the unexplained. Many years of coming to understand his father had taken their toll on his stoic psyche, but something inside him took notice of the sense of unease, the possible distress. Burglars, perhaps. It wasn't unknown, although they tended to keep away from this side of the town as a rule. Too many police officers lived in these streets and closes, which backed onto the fields. Perhaps it was foxes sniffing around the leftovers that inevitably found their way to the ground once the neighbour's cat had ripped open the bin bag. Another sound. The mist tapped against the glass, pushed by the wind and stirred in apprehension. Tom rose and walked stealthily to the side of a window and peeked out, not wishing to confront head-on whatever was out there. The lock on the door rattled. Maybe his dad had finally had enough of his son's weekend retreat into a stoner life and had come back to drag him into the house to deliver the ultimatum. Stand up straight, turn left, wheel right, stand at ease, stand to attention and repeat forever. Straining his neck to take in the window's narrow field of vision, he saw a light, a dark glow, grubby, insistent. Not enough to hurt his eyes, but enough to squint as if he were concentrating on a mock exam in school. Inside the light, he saw the silhouette of a man dressed in a suit and a top hat, a walking cane in his left hand, not for aiding in the act of walking, it seemed. And Tom squinted harder. The man's face coming to focus, followed by a wave of revulsion at the sickly yellow hue of his skin and the black eyes that stared towards the house and threatened to pull Tom into the darkness. Breaking away, he looked towards the wide open back door. His father must have fallen asleep without locking up. Tom turned his attention back to the yellow-faced man, noticing now that the colour was in streaks as if he was a creature had undergone treatment for jaundice and had never somehow made it worse. His hands, large and ungainly, reached out, fingers knotted, riddled with bumps, and his fingernails, though tinged with the same yellow as his features, were transparent, long and pointed, almost flimsy. The man walked towards the house, the mist following him as if by command, then suddenly looked back at the shed, and Tom experienced the same kind of apprehension he'd felt when one of his dogs had come back from their walk alone, brown lead trailing in the mud. Tom started banging his head against the window. He was afraid. The figure grinned and placed one knotted, bony finger over its cracked mouth, quietly shushing Tom's shouts of alarm. The shed was locked, the key still in the hole, as it made it harder for his father to burst in and witness his son's fall from potential soldier to the unwashed layabout. But it was of no consequence. The figure had turned away, back towards the house. The mist closed up tight around the dark light, reminding Tom of a coal miner's torch when the air was thick with gas and impending disaster. He scrambled to unlock the door. He may have spent the day goading his father about his mother's death in the US airbase up the road, the nuclear weapons the Americans had buried under the soil ready to unleash a terrible fallout and plague across civilization. But he cared for his dad, albeit in the small chunks between constantly drilled about his future. The man entered the house, and a few seconds later, Tom heard a scream that turned him cold. He let go of the key and let his arms fall to the side, defeated, unsure of what to do. A minute later, the man walked out of the house and strode towards the shed, momentarily out of sight before appearing at the window. He looked directly into Tom's eyes and held up a key. It was the key to the shed. The figure smiled and bowed down. Tom edged closer, watching the figure put the key on the grass out of reach and then slowly raise itself up to its full height. It pressed its face against the glass pane, and Tom sprang back, the hairs on his arms, which had only just started showing the previous summer, standing to attention. His heart pounding a double-quick march. The figure repeated the gesture of silence, the finger raised slowly and with solemnity to the grinning mouth. Then the mist cleared and the figure was gone, vanished into the darkness as if a figment of Tom's imagination, a nightmare brought on by the weed. Even as he was convincing himself that's what's happened, he heard the distant sound of sirens blaring, waking up the night and bringing reality crashing down upon his life. He staggered backwards, topping onto his makeshift bed, and screamed for help. Okay.
That was brilliant, mate. Really enjoyed that. Dave, did you enjoy that?
I actually read that last night in bed, that chapter.
I'm always very conscious because, as Tony will tell you, I stutter on occasion, especially when I'm nervous, which is one of the reasons why I stopped doing performing, because I couldn't control the nervousness on there, and because I no longer drink, I was nervous all the time, so I stopped. So I apologise if at a couple of occasions I started to stutter.
Honestly, and it was as good as anyone would have done. It was, and you got the feeling across, which is what is so important in narration whether or not you read it and do it in your own head or you do it out loud. It was spot on, absolutely.
It makes you human.
Thank you.
What's say, Dave?
It makes you human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we all, I mean, you're doing it live. You've only read it out loud once before, if that.
Yeah.
So, I don't think anyone would ever judge one word being misspoken or pausing at the wrong place or anything. I don't think anything was noticeable anyway. So,
Well, thank you.
we're going to go backwards before we go forwards.
Yes.
And talk a little bit about how you came to be. But we are going to have a quick go at playing another song for you.
Okay.
So this one might, I hope, start playing. Is it playing? Yeah. Now, I'm actually going to fast forward it a tiny bit because it's got a 55-minute guitar and drum intro before the lyrics. So, I think Dave will appreciate that anyway, because that's probably right up Dave's street, that one.
In the words of Blackadder, that's right up Dave's alley.
It's up his passages. So, obviously, I'm going to give a tiny bit of the book away, but I don't think it'll spoil anything because it's obvious something like this might happen. The sanitarium that's in the title of that song does directly perhaps link into part of the book further on without going too much into detail.
It does. But there's also a connection to the first book.
Oh, go on.
The Death of Poetry.
Oh.
Because in the first chapter of The Death of Poetry, there's a death inside a sanitarium, or what you perceive to be as a sanitarium at the time. And when I first wrote that first chapter in the first book, I was sort of aiming to write a horror, and I wrote that first chapter, and I sat on it for a couple of days thinking, I like it, but it's not a horror. I don't want to go down that route just yet because, well, as you know, and I think Micah would know, and Dave possibly might guess because he's known me long enough now on Facebook, my imagination is far too fertile. And what worried me, if I'd have written that first book as a horror, it would have sucked me into a place that I wasn't ready to go into yet. And when we did the first book launch at Right Blend, Chris, a mate of mine from university called Chris, asked me from the back of the shop, said, "So you've been a horror fan all your life. When are you going to write a horror?" Yeah, all right. At some point, I probably will. And so I connected that one moment in that first book. I've connected it to this book in a way, and it's just something I remembered from university because I went to university quite late in life. That it's all about connection. So that's what I'm trying to do with each book. There is a connection to each book, and the book that I wrote during the summer, which again is another horror, not gothic horror, folk horror type of thing to do with insects, very much in the vein of James Herbert. There's connection to this book in that one as well. So it is connections.
And I just obviously picked up on the fact, having read most of the new book, I haven't finished it, admittedly, but I will, because there is a section where they do, some people do end up somewhere you could call a sanitarium.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
people are going to have to read it.
Set in a place called Wendell Fields, which is, you may as well know it's short for Wendlebury, which is near the place where the book is based upon. The village, the town is based upon.
This book is set very firmly where you basically grew up, isn't it? It's Oxfordshire.
It's Oxfordshire, yeah.
But you've got a link to Liverpool brought in as well. I mean, was that deliberate or?
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay.
Because there was a link to in the first book to Liverpool, just one small chapter about a young girl plucked off the street by the protagonist up by the bombed out church. And there isn't a connection in the fourth book, but I'm hoping there will be in 2 books down the line if my brain goes the way that I'm hoping it will.
Yeah.
And some of these other connections will connect even further.
So a question, we had a chat earlier and we delved into a couple of things.
What, when I could get online?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I knew you wrote reviews and I've read quite a lot of them. And if anyone ever does want to know something about a film, a book, a play, a gig, go to Ian's archive. I mean, how many reviews have you done, Ian?
Over 10,000. Over 10,000.
Yeah. So it's about 10 years worth, isn't it?
Well, there's 79 from the Birmingham Mail.
Yeah.
When I first started, not long after I had major spinal surgery, and I hadn't been able to leave the house in a good couple of months or so, and I won't go into the whys or wherefores, but I couldn't get out of the house. A bit like now, really. And an old friend of mine who was my next door neighbour when I did live in Birmingham as a boy, he ended up as the arts editor for the Birmingham Mail. And he rang me up one day and said, Ian, nobody's heard from you. Are you all right? I went, yeah, I'm just stuck in the house and nothing I can do. He said, when are you thinking of being able to leave the house? And I went, well, I'm open by February. And I did manage to. And he said, right, okay, there's a gig on tonight in the Robin in Bilston. And I love the Robin. It's one of my favourite venues. And he said, look, all you got to do is attend, write down what the person sang, and I'll write a review from it because I can't go. Okay, it's a free gig. I get to go. I've not been out of the house for a few months. This would be lovely. So there I am. At that point, I was still using a stick rather than the chair. So I was using the stick to hobble around, which was difficult. But I got a friend of mine to get, well, I say friend, it's my big adopted sister in the end, Paula. And she and her husband gave me a lift over to Bilston, and we went. And I got home, and I looked at it, and I thought, you know what? It's only 150 words. I can do that. I'm sure I can. So I wrote a review. I sent it across to him with the explanation of, look, if you don't like it, it's not a problem. The songs are listed as well. And he rang me up and said, I love this. Can you write some more? So I ended up writing 79 times to the Birmingham Mail, but then the Birmingham Mail, as with a lot of local papers, it all contracted down and it all went. But by that time, I was then writing for the University of Liverpool anyway, and then for myself. So it's been quite a journey, really.
So 10 years or so, is
it? For myself, 9. I started a few weeks after I finished university. Because I was contracted sort of to write for the university until the September of me finishing uni.
So we're going to have a bit of a celebration when you do hit your official 10th anniversary.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
because I can't do gig reviews anymore because I was finding it. I was finding it far too draining in the end to keep going out night after night. I mean, at one point I was out 6 nights a week, and in all seriousness, it was killing me. And I was surviving on about 2 or 3 hours sleep a night and not resting at all during the day. And I don't care what anybody says, nightmares are one thing, but not being able to function is quite another.
Yeah.
and I don't know. So, I mean, the gig reviews I love doing. I saw Andrew, for example. I saw John Chatterton, and I love doing all the local people coming up. Tom Moorcraft, Dylan Nannelli, Alan O'Hare, who is a big favourite, well, as they all are. All these wonderful people who I've seen, Dominic Bassett and their bands and everything. But I also got asked to see the big bands and review them as well. I got emails saying, "Can you come and review Billy Joel at Wembley?" And yeah, of course I can. I will be there. That was, to me, that was a huge, not only a thrill, but a personal vindication of what I do, and it was nice. But as for celebrating it, I'm not big on celebrations, really. I'm not even celebrating my 50th next month.
Oh, well, you are. You are. We're going to make you. Andrew and I are going to make you. We're going to throw an idea together.
I don't know if it's sort of open knowledge, Tony. I don't know if we should mention it yet.
It's not. It's not open knowledge.
Fair enough. Okay, no. We'll tell people.
We'll tell you when the time comes, folks.
Yeah.
There's 2 or 3 big things coming.
Ian's very good at not wanting people to know about him, but the irony is he tells wonderful stories about everybody else. So I think we all should gang up on him in reverse, really, and and do something for him at some point. I do. Mikey, you're on mute. You have to unmute.
And if I'm correct, it's on the 19th, isn't it?
17th. You're on about my birthday?
Okay.
17th.
Oh, sorry, mixed up with my brother. Okay.
No, I'm not as handsome as your brother.
You were born Wednesday, the 17th of February, 1971.
I was.
2 days
I was born.
Nationalisation.
I even better than that. I was born to the sound of England winning the Ashes in Australia.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah, I was, and that's probably why I'm a big cricket fan. I love my cricket, as well as Tony knows. I'm a huge cricket fan. Not that I get to go much because, again, I can't sit there for hours on end anymore because it's just too much. But I was also born during a thunderstorm. So I take that
there's got to be a significance to that.
There probably is.
There are people who delve into these things, aren't there? I've got a friend who does. I'm going to say fortune telling, but that does it disjustice. they piece together things from your date of birth, what year it was, with Chinese zodiacs and things, and they're quite uncanny in some of the things they come up with. Now you might notice that if Ian moves about 8 inches, that's it, stops there. He's got his Man City advert behind his head.
But I wish it was Man City.
But when he moves the other way, it says Man Cave.
It was given to me as a present by a very good friend in Salisbury. But it suits. I mean, it's you got your maiden and you got the squonk there as well on a thing. But and I tend to collect used drumsticks from bands.
The autographs. How do you know who they are?
I'm also an old Sea Scout. You see, so that's why I've got the knots up there.
No, I mean it's cool. It's cool to have things like that, isn't it? And
they define a life.
What say, Andrew?
They define a life.
Yeah,
it's what you're about, really.
Yeah. So obviously, we'll go back into the books a little bit. So
okay,
you did these reviews for years. And then I met you about 6 years ago, I reckon it was. And
I popped into the shop not long after you'd opened.
Yeah.
Because me and Judith, my wife, Boo, we'd gone to the cinema and we were seeing 2 films at the Crosby Cinema. And we had an hour to kill and we thought we'd go up South Road because we hadn't done it for a few weeks. Let's go. And I was going to go into a charity shop. And I went, yeah, there's a bookshop. And Drew went, yeah, there's a bookshop. Let's go in the bookshop. That's new. And we went in. So I met you, yeah.
So it was about 6 years ago because it's frightening, really. And one of the things we started doing we did all sorts of functions at Right Blend. In fact, I think some of them would still be going on. We had poetry nights. We had life art classes. We had all sorts of stuff going on. It was great culture. And obviously, we found out Ian was a poet. So what we used to do at the poetry nights was invite someone who was a proper poet to come and do, if they had a book coming out, come and do some readings from their books, sell and sign copies. And Ian turned up. But did Ellen and Ellie come to that one? She
No,
did at one of yours.
I think she did.
Yeah.
I tell you, she did, and John did as well. And it was also that night I had to stop halfway through, if you remember, because I started sweating like a man thing, and then I realised that I'd caught flu, and I was in bed for I was in bed for about 5 weeks, but it was really weird because all I could hear was the sound of a violin playing, and so I couldn't really review any music because all I could hear was this tune in my head, and it wasn't until about a year and a half later that I'd been told that what I'd actually had was swine flu.
Oh, which isn't nice.
No, I only found out that later on, but no, I was quite bad with it. Yeah.
So I got to know Ian as a poet, and the fact he was always reviewing brilliant bands, local and national, international. And you did a festival in Bootle, didn't you? There was a big festival. And
yeah.
John Chasterton, who was a
literally the closest gig I will ever have in my life, because it was basically at the end of my road on the bowling green.
Park?
Yeah,
No,
it wasn't North Park. It wasn't North Park. It was opposite Johnson's.
You know Johnson's, the old Johnson's factory. There's a small, well, it's not that small. You can get about 500 people in it. Park.
Yeah.
And a guy Ian knows put on a big open air festival for the day, and they had some great bands on. But somewhere down the line, the guy got in touch with someone, I don't know if it was Ian or me, and said, would Ian perform some poetry? But he thought it would go well with music. So Ian got hold of John Chatterton, who was a phenomenal guitarist. And about the middle of the afternoon, didn't you? You did about half-hour set of John played a bit of music, then Ian read a poem, John played a bit of music, and then he sort of played cleverly and quietly behind you in a way, didn't he?
Yeah, it worked. And we went one better slightly on the night, which I mentioned earlier with Andrew, where I'd written some words to Albatross by the brilliant Fleetwood Mac, but I thought I'll give it a go, see if I can write some words to what it was doing. And John played to that one, which was very cool. So John on the night was playing this Albatross thing, and I was doing a completely different new set of words to it, and that was quite a thrill.
But these are the sort of things you can do on Zoom, I reckon.
It could be. I mean, I owe John a tremendous lot.
He's a lovely chap. He's a great artist as well, isn't he?
He is. And it was just very nice because, again, with a lot of these things that have happened, I can't do it anymore. So it's by the by. But in many ways, I was the first person to write about a lot of Liverpool bands for the best part of 8 years. And I couldn't have been more privileged to have done so. And that may sound wet. I don't care. I was privileged to have written about Eleanor, to John, Alan, you know, all these, Tom Moorcroft, everybody in this particular realm. And for a good while, when I said November of 2019, I went to Tom's gig, and I had a choice of doing Tom's and Eleanor's. I found out Eleanor's was upstairs, and I couldn't do that one, and I was gutted about that, but I did Tom's. And I said at that point, that will be the last gig I review, because I just physically I couldn't do it anymore. It was making me ill. So it's a shame, but I felt very honoured for a long time.
Ian, have you not thought of a lot of the bands are doing gigs via Zoom now?
I get that. The problem that I have, I've tried one, and I felt completely disconnected from it.
Ah, right, okay.
The problem being is I can't feel the emotion.
Yeah, so you like to get the sweat and the smell and
it's like John. Tony playing Metallica a minute ago. I would kill to go and see Metallica again because of the emotion, and that's how I've always dealt with it. Like on a film review or a gig review or a play review, I try to feel the emotion of the piece, and you can't do that, I don't think, with a screen.
Yeah.
You can do it with a film because you're signing up to. You are signing up to being told you will see what we've envisaged.
Yeah.
Whereas with a gig, say for example, you've got the great Super Tramp frontman Roger up on stage playing his piano. I don't feel the same watching a screen as I do sitting in front of him or to his side and letting the music wash over me.
Right.
Which is a shame, really.
I understand where you're coming from. I was just thinking, to get you back into the vibe of it, into the swing of it. But if you feel disconnected from it, then you're not going to get that review. You're not going to get that feeling to give it the review it probably warrants.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it works for this sort of thing, and it works for poetry, and it probably would work for like an acoustic, simple thing. But I agree with Ian. We talked about this before, actually. I don't think it works for what you might call big, proper bands. No matter how well shot it is and how good the sound is, it just isn't the same. If you've been to the gig and you watch a video of it, you've got the connection you made at the time you went. I mean, Michael, you'll think this because you're a big Marillion fan, aren't you? So you would pay €50 to go and see them in a theatre, and you think that was brilliant. But how much would you pay to watch them like on a screen like this? What would your limit be?
Well, I did pay because, as Ian knows, because I shared the link with him, but he wasn't able to watch it at a point in time. The last Saturday before Christmas, the lead singer of Marillion did a solo gig from a chapel in Oxford.
Yeah.
And they installed proper cameras and proper sound. And everybody that wanted to view it, it was a proper concert of 2 hours, I think 1.5, almost 2 hours. And if you wanted to view it, you had two options. Either you could buy a single ticket, which was 12 quid, or you could buy a family ticket, whereas with more people in one house, you would view the same thing, and you could pay 18 quid.
But that's the difference in the price, isn't it? That's reasonable, 10, 12, 15 pounds or euros. But you wouldn't pay 50 euros for a gig like that, would you?
No. Yeah. No, because then I would rather save the 50 euros or quid to have a proper concert, like a real concert.
Yeah.
And what they also did, and which was really nice, they opened up, as they would call it, a tip jar through PayPal, in which all the fans could donate for their crew, because they have about a crew of 10 people they normally hire, which don't have any income at this point in time. So a lot of people donated, and in the end, I think every crew member got around 650 quid donated.
Well, that's not bad, is it?
Isn't it?
I know the Marillion have always worked on crowdfunding, because when they got dropped by AMI, I basically said, well, you're selling records, but not enough to satisfy us. And so they decided, after a few years of releasing stuff independently, why don't we try a crowdfunding option? Because someone in America said, why didn't you tour America? They said, well, we need £70,000 to do that. And immediately, all the American fans put money in, and they could go and tour America. In fact, they did a bigger tour than they expected. So they've always been very, very canny on connecting with the fans and the financial management of it.
They were the ones that kind of invented crowdfunding in the end, because of the US tour and the stuff like that. And almost every album they did for the last 20 years was always with pre-order. And if you pre-ordered before a certain date, especially the last ones, your name would be in the booklet.
Yeah,
I know the strange idea.
Comics as well. Yeah, but Ian, if next time there's a videoed concert, and it's it's 12 quid, for an extra 6 quid, I'll come round to your house and stand in front of you, and throw drinks.
Yeah, and have a beer.
Kind of
Dave,
get the
have a
vibe
beer.
of it, you know.
And have your pie and your chips.
Dave,
And every time you move that way, I'll move that
Sorry,
way.
mate. Sorry.
before you
And
go,
I'll
Dave,
hold
you need to
hold
run
my phone
around
in the
for an
air like that.
hour.
Yeah,
To
you
sweat
get
enough.
sweaty. Ian, you've got a date there, mate. And he lives near enough, so £6 is fair price.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Jog down. He'd be nice and sweaty if he jogs down from Nevy.
Well, there is one thing I'd like to say though. You see, I've always preferred going to a theatre to see a band. Although I've been in plenty of pubs and plenty of places where I've played. I've always preferred a theatre proscenium arch, seeing a band, the discreet performance. And yet, when people say to me, "I've got a live video of whatever band it is," technically it might be brilliant and all that, but it's just television. It's just like looking at something on television, and I can't feel the same sense of urgency about it.
Yeah.
That's why one of the things that left me pretty cold some years ago, and I hope that nobody likes this band because I'm going to find myself facing quite a lot of anger really over it, is when Dire Straits did an album, what was it called? Alchemy.
Alchemy Live. Yeah.
Yeah. Now they did Alchemy, and it was like this version of Sultans of Swing, which went on for ages, really. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm bored. That sounds terrible, but I didn't feel it was great, probably for the audience who were there. And then there was a part at the end. Was it the part where they were playing theme from Local Hero, Going Home? And they were taking down the stuff on the stage. And I thought, that's good. But what I'm looking at is basically roadies rushing on, going, hang on, lads, got to get home here.
Yeah.
I was not really sort of reacting to it being a good performance.
I never saw Dire Straits. I never saw Dire Straits live. I saw Mark Knopfler live in Newcastle with Jude.
In his house?
Newcastle City Hall, I think it was. Yeah, in Newcastle City Hall. And to be honest with you, it was really good, but I was bored because there was an awful lot of country in there, and I don't mind country, but when you go to see Mark Knopfler, you're hoping that you might see something completely different, you know.
I saw Mark Knopfler and he was playing rhythm guitar with Eric Clapton. Wow, blew me away.
I didn't feel blown away. I felt appreciative.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Mark Knopfler was Eric Clapton's rhythm guitarist that night. Absolutely fantastic.
That's about as close as you're getting.
Look at that. He's got a steel guitar.
Yeah.
He's going to play something for us then. Give us a little tune.
Oh, it's not a tune. It's a bugger tune.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
And also, as well as being a bugger tune, the weight of it. It's steel body. Other than the next maple. It's a steel body. So trying to lift this is... Well, it gives you a bad shoulder.
If anyone says they don't like you can just waft it around their head.
I can tell you, true story. I was once the victim of an intended break-in. I stopped him, and I was running down the road with socks on, a vest, and the undercrackers, running after him with a bass guitar. Now the problem was, the police in Liverpool are sometimes a bit, how can I put it? They look for the bleeding obvious. Tautology is the thing. So in other words, who's got the weapon? Is it the man running away, or is it the man holding a bass guitar going out saying, "Come back, you bastard"? Now, unfortunately, I was stopped. Have you got a receipt for that bass guitar? He's just trying to put my panel in on my back door. So I've got this bass guitar. And he said, "We think you better go back to your house. I need to see where you got that from." I'm like,
well, you should have said to them, Andy, you should have said, "I bought it off Dave McCluskey in Rushworth." You wouldn't have the receipt for it.
Hey, I'll tell you this much for one thing, Dave.
In your underpants, and the police is asking, "Where's your receipt?" As we say in Liverpool.
So, keks. I think the word you're looking for, Mikey, is keks. You know, keks. Right. Undercrackers.
So listen, what we're going to do is we're going to share another bit of music of Ian's choosing. He says, if this now works. It working?
Yeah.
When you're on your own, you walk in the rain. You walk around the house, then walk around it again. You pretend you're happy, that you got it all. But don't be upset if you fall on your knees and beg like a dog. I've reached a love, don't you know? You're the apple of my eye. I'm running love with this show. No matter how I try, I'm sick of this.
So, Ian,
Yes.
obviously, your book's called Ghost Apples.
Yes.
Obviously, I sort of jokingly said, think of some songs about ghosts and apples. Sure. Are you allowed to tell people what a ghost apple is for those that don't know? Should we do a quick poll,
I certainly can.
Micah, do you know what a ghost apple is? No? Julie? No? Alban?
No, definitely not.
No. David?
Is it something to do with horses on street?
No. Okay, George, do you know what ghost apple is?
Is it something to do with a kind of a hacked Apple computer thing?
Oh no, this is
No,
this
okay,
is an old,
no idea.
It's an old farming thing, really, isn't it, Ian?
Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
It is. I think this is my Cornish heritage coming through, because I'm actually half Cornish, and I don't like to be proud of things, but I'm very thankful to be half Cornish. From my mum, because she's a Cornish woman, and my great grandfather had an apple orchard, and it hugged the cliffs on the Tamar. So if you're looking at the Tamar, Plymouth on one side and Cornwall on the other side, my great granddad's house and orchard was hugging that cliff, and it was a great man. And he died in about 76 or 77. But one day I was out in his orchard, and there'd been a sudden frost, and my step great granddad's second wife, I was out in the orchard, and she showed me what was termed, and still is termed, as a ghost apple. And it's when there's a sudden frost and it coats the apple on the outside completely, and inside it rots, so the apple seeps away and seeps through the ice, and what you're left with is effectively a glass image of the apple. And the word ghost apples only appears once in the book, I think, or the phrase only appears once or so in the book. But it's the memory of the outside. The inside is all gone. It's been washed away. It's rotted and it's dissipated into the ground below. And what you're left with is the image.
So,
that's a ghost apple.
Yeah, no, it comes up, doesn't it, in the book, and it's sort of explained to another character, what it means, really. But the song "Apple of My Eye" is all about fancying someone, I would assume, really.
It is. It is.
Good. We like Ed Harcourt, though. He's a good singer.
Ed Harcourt. I think Dave saw my link this morning about because I've been doing this album of the day thing for the last year now. Basically, it's because I've got nothing else to say. I may as well put an album up to. It puts my mum's mind at rest first thing in the morning. Oh, Ian's managed to wake up then, and he's putting an album up. So it puts my mum's mind at rest first thing in the morning if I'm talking about music on there. Because I sort of became very disillusioned with social media for a good 18 months when I kept on being told to shut up. Probably rightly or wrongly, I don't know. That's not my choice to call. But I thought, well, if I at least put up an album of the day, then I'm still saying something. And Ed Harcourt is the only artist that I've ever bought an album, his debut album, on the basis of an 11-second advert on the television. I heard the sound and I thought, oh my God, that sounds incredible. And I think it was on the 3 or 4 days afterwards. So on the Saturday, I went into Birmingham Town Centre. I went to Woolworths at the top of the ramp, as it were, when it was still there. And look, I don't know what this song is. I don't know who it's by, but I sang it. I sang the first few words, and she goes, "Yes, I think I know which one it was." And she played it me, and it was Ed Harcourt's new album.
Luckily, she understood your singing. You could have had Wham's greatest hits twice.
I could have done, but I don't think that would have happened to someone. I know I can't sing, but I'm not averse to singing.
I mean, that's great. I mean, mind you, record shops used to be like that. You go in and you'd say, "Do you know this lyric?" And I went in once, and it was like I was trying to find a song, but radio presenters now are a bit, well, they're inclined to just put records out, but they don't put any introduction on them. So I'm saying, "Excuse me, do you know the song?" And he goes, "Go on." "We should know better. We should know why." I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's Dodgy. Dodgy, I found you."
Right.
And I ended up where I bought the album on the basis of hearing that song.
Didn't I can't think of his name now. The Liverpool legend. He worked at Probe, and he would do a very similar. He would do a very similar thing, but then tell you off for buying it. You're not buying that bleep 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 record in here type of thing.
I know. Well, Pete Burns used to do the new releases catalogue, and it'd be like in 1987, 5 Star. Do you remember them? Right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
It's an addict, right? And they had the new 5 Star single. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
I said, 5 Star, not a piece of teeny crap. Yours for found if you can be fucking bothered. You know. And you'd end up with your body just to see his reaction.
Yeah.
I can't imagine
on another occasion
selling 5 Star.
Yeah, but you know, you've got to give them a plus point for that. I remember one time him saying, you know, "Well, what record do you want to buy?" And I said, "Well, number 11 by Dead or Alive." And he goes, "It's not the fucking best thing we've done, though, is it? It's 20 by Falling." I went, "But I've only got £1.50 and I can't buy both." He said, "Here you are. Take both and pass in the rest at the end of the week." That was my introduction to Dead or Alive. That's how you sell records, folks. You get in touch with the artist. You know, Marillion didn't invent this. Burns probably did.
So
I used to love record shops like that in Liverpool, but the only one that's left, which has still got that kind of maverick spirit, is the Musical Box in West Derby Road.
I went there to get some vinyl for Ian a while ago, didn't I? You rang him up. I went down and collected some. Yeah, it's great setup. Yeah.
Where I grew up in Bicester, we had one record shop, and from about 83 onwards, I would spend my Monday mornings in there rather than ever go to RE. I flatly refused to go to RE classes, so much so that so I would spend my Monday mornings developing the 2-finger shuffle in this record shop in Bicester. It's just off Sheep Street anyway, and I was doing that, and that's how I learned that music was much more. Yeah, that was my Monday morning sermon, was doing this and praying to the gods that they had an album I wanted that day. But on my RE for my 3rd year, my RE teacher at the end of the year, when they write your report card, I've still got it. My RE report card says Ian Who, because I went once.
Well, this is your existential existence thing, isn't it? About
at least they didn't think you were an atheist.
That's it. They must have had you down as a non-deity.
Sorry to ask this question, but which subject is RE?
Religion.
Religious education.
Oh, okay.
theology or
Yeah.
religion. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
religious
I get it, I get it.
education.
Yeah. So, Ian, we're bobbing around, which is fine, but I did ask if you'd read us a poem. Could you
You
find
did.
one? Have you got one that's to hand?
I have.
So,
I can do two because they're quite
course you can.
short.
Yeah, I'll put you
Unless
on.
you want me to do When Echo Was a Boy and I'll be here all night.
Oh, that's brilliant, though, isn't it?
Oh, When Echo Was a Boy. That was
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my homage to the brain's gone completely dead. I've been up too long. Can't think of his name there, but he did a translation of all the Greek myths and everything like that. So I thought, well, I'll give that a go. So I did that in homage to him.
Ian, just show us the cover. Is it Black Book or
Black
this
Book,
was I
yes.
think Ian's first properly published collection of poetry, and you always start them with a lyric from a famous song and end with a lyric, don't you? If you want to tell us that before you do the reading.
This was the opening lyric to this one was from The Wall, which was, to me, is still one of the two greatest albums of all time. I listened to the other one to keep me happy, and I listened to this one if I want to feel melancholic. And the line is, "I've got a little black book." And I found that nobody ever called a poetry book that. So, blow it. I thought I'll call my poetry book that. Which seemed to go down quite well.
It works. It works. If you know the album.
I sat next to Ian McNabb one night in the Philharmonic, and he saw the copy of it and went, I think it was the greatest, two of my greatest memories of Ian McNabb, aside from today's finding out that he's managed to brass off Russell Crowe, which was quite interesting. I thought was amusing as hell that he managed to do that.
Well, Russell Crowe's a bit of a pillock, I believe.
Yeah, I hope you edit that out because I don't want to now be banned by Facebook because you've said that, but thanks. We once sang a Pink Floyd song together in a pub in Liverpool because we were both drunk, and that was really nice. And he sat me down. We sat down next to each other at this Philharmonic gig, saw the book, and he went, "That's genius. That is. Nobody's ever called a poetry book. Nobody's the Black Book." I went, "Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?" So that was nice.
That's the sort of homage you want, isn't it? Really,
it is. Yeah. I mean, I like Ian a lot. He gets a lot of it, but I like him.
So you're going to give us two.
Just plastered over the back.
Genius. What's plastered over the back? Yeah. Recommended by him at now.
Yeah. So come on, Ian, tell us what you're going to give. One's quite short, isn't it? I think
one's really short, but I wrote it at university. I was never a drunk. I used to drink to dull the pain in my spine, and I liked a bit good beer. But I think you've got to sit in the right pub to drink beer, to also then write something about the pub in that moment. And this one was called The Time. The time is not yet past, where beer and talk are of the past. To drink and savour the last drop of the chat and conversation's drunken blast. To hear the thoughts of men, of women, and their bairn is to hear and there belong again.
Really
good
as
well for the moment, isn't it?
Yeah,
and that was written inside the Cambridge pub in Liverpool, which sadly I don't even think it's open anymore. But I don't go in there anymore. But
there's not many are going to be open the way things are going.
The pubs are open at the moment, are they?
No.
And what, are you going to treat us to another one, eh?
I am. And I don't know if my good lady, sorry, I've got an itchy nose. I don't know if my good lady wife can hear me in the other room because she doesn't like these type of things, but this is her favourite poem of mine.
Oh, brilliant.
So it's called Facial Expressions. In a tear, a lifetime's sadness is shown. In a tear, all manners of images are exposed. In a tear, life can end. In a tear, broken hearts mend. In a smile, friends become lovers. In a smile, true feelings uncover. In a smile, people fall for strangers. In a smile, we face the greatest of dangers. In a laugh, heroes stand tall. In a laugh, comedians hear the audience call. In a laugh, there is unity in a nation. In a laugh lies love's greatest potion. In a kiss, lovers unite as one. In a kiss, romanced by the setting sun. In a kiss, children are made. In all our emotions, our souls are saved.
Yeah.
Superb, mate.
Thank you.
It's
you.
There's two things about that. It's a series of litany statements. It's a litany.
Yeah.
Right. And you feel it builds towards something, but it's very profound. But it's also got it's vaguely like a Japanese haiku. You know, maybe I'm wrong about that.
It's the only form of poetry I can't get my head around. I've read the Norway, the Viking sagas and everything like that. And I'm a huge fan of Beowulf in terms of what it represents and everything. But the haiku, forgive me, I just can't get my head around it.
It's an art form of its own making, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
A lot of it is to do with the way it's illustrated on the page. You know, so you've got someone writing a thing about, say, a tulip, tall, bright, beautiful, in a vase, on a doily in our house. You know, I mean, it's descriptive, but it doesn't really give you anything.
It doesn't blow my mind.
A certain amount of syllables, hasn't it?
Yeah, basically. So we're gonna play another favour of Ian's, which I hope this one George might sing along to actually.
Like a million little doorways, all the choices we made, all the stages we passed through, all the roads we played. For so many different directions, our separate paths might have turned. Every door that we opened, every bridge that we burned. Somehow we find each other through all that masquerade. Somehow we found each other. Somehow we have stayed in a state of grace.
So was George singing along there? No, you should have been singing along. You like Rush?
Yeah, I like
One of
Rush.
your favourite bands. I thought you'd be quite impressed that someone else had chosen
I heard
a
of them.
song.
I love the bass playing, but then again, I'm a bassist. I really love the bass playing and that.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're one of the best technically, but they don't have catchy hits. They don't have catchy hits, do they? Bar Spirit of Radio, and Closer to the Edge.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say Tom Sawyer.
Yeah, but overall, they're not renowned for catchy hits, are they?
Yeah, they're not renowned for 45s, are they?
No. Oh no, there's really a song under 10 minutes, is there really? Go back to the early
45 minutes. Yeah.
I know, but they're into like all bands who take the music seriously and put their effort in. They're into big concepts.
Yeah.
Things to band them all together, so you feel it's not really divisible to take one thing, answer it, and say, "Oh, this represents the whole thing." Imagine something like 2-1-1-2. I mean, you can't do that with a Rush album at all.
No. I don't know who it was. Don't know if it was Aerosmith or Led Zeppelin or someone toured with them, and someone said to one of the singers or guitarists, "So what are Rush like?" He said, "We don't really know, because they all go back to their hotel room and read books. We don't see them." But apparently, I think Neil Peart wrote, before he died, he wrote...
Is it Ghost Rider or something?
Yeah, he wrote Ghost Rider. which ties in with you, Ian. Really, if you think about it.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Well,
been to
another
Rush with Ian.
You've seen
You
Rush
have?
with Ian, yeah?
Yeah.
We've been to
George
Rush.
and I saw them in 1985, I think it was, or thereabouts.
1980, wasn't it?
Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
See, we're lucky. We're older than all this lot.
Yeah. That's true.
Only just. I think I'm
Only
older than
just,
you.
only just. Yeah. That was Deeside Leisure Centre, I think.
It was,
Me and-
yeah.
Me and Micah saw them down in London at the O2.
Yeah.
Cracking. I only got to see Rush for the first time a couple of years before that at Birmingham. I'd always loved them, but I'd never been able to go. And again, going back to Andy Coleman, he rang me up, and I'd done Roger from Supertramp the night before, and I rang him up to say, did you get the review? Because I'm on my way back home to Liverpool, because I was in Liverpool by this time. And he said, yeah, have you got on your train yet? And I went, no, I'm about to. He said, can you stay in Birmingham one more night? Oh, yeah, why? He said, can you do Rush tonight at the NEC? Yeah, all right then. Yeah, please. Yeah. And that was the first time I actually got to see them, but I was fortunate enough then to see them with Micah a couple of years later.
Yeah. I went
It was 2014, if I'm correct.
Clockwork Angels tour, if I remember rightly.
Brilliant tour, yeah. No, I went to the NEC many years ago when I first could drive with 3 or 4 of my mates to see either Queen or Aerosmith, can't remember now. And we got there quite early and parked in this car park. Went off somewhere to find somewhere to eat. Eventually got into the gig because we wanted to get on the, where you could stand at the front. So we were determined to be early in. We got in, got right to the front, had a great gig. And Thunder, that Dave was playing earlier, they supported both of them. Every time I went to the NEC, the only support band was Thunder. They were really good. But they must have been the house.
Love Thunder.
Must have been the house band at the NEC. I saw them 3 or 4 times.
I love Thunder. I'm a friend of
Heart,
Harry's.
I went to see Heart and we supported them. But anyway, we came out and we couldn't find the car because there's about 4 car parks and we hadn't made a note which one we were in. We were there till about 2 in the morning. Bloody car.
But that's a logical thing to do, though, Tony. Yeah. What you do is, if you can't find your car, wait until everyone else has gone home and the one that's left is yours.
Yeah, but, I couldn't remember the reg, the colour or anything. It was before you had them BP alarms as well. You had the key. Wandering up to Ford Fiestas going, is this one mine? So we must go back to your books for a minute because technically that's part of the process here. So you've written 2 crime novels, noir really, more than crime. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you must have grown up reading, Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett and, James M. Cain and everybody.
Actually, I didn't. I got into noir. I love crime books because I'm a huge fan of Colin Dexter, and I got to see Colin Dexter in Crosby Library in the library in Waterloo.
Yeah.
And we hit it off. We got on quite well at the end.
He's a lovely chap, wasn't he? Really
lovely chap, and of course from Oxford. Well, wrote in Oxford and worked in Oxford, so there was that type of affinity going on. But I never read any noir. I watched a lot of cinema that was noir, but I didn't read any noir until I went to university. And one of the courses that I was enrolled upon at the University of Liverpool was noir, crime and noir, and I fell in love with it. And it just the whole concept blew my mind. It was good stuff.
Yeah,
it's good stuff. But it wasn't until I was 38, 39 that I actually read any of it.
I'll have to get you a copy of My In the Mood for Murder.
Oh yeah, well I'll drop one. I'll drop one off when we next.
I think I have that one because I've got 2, and it's in. I'm just trying to see where it's. Oh, there it is. Yes, I've got. It's just in this pile here because I had to move everything around the other day to fit something on. But I love crack. If I may plug somebody else's work for a minute, David's. I'm going to have to say this very carefully, but David's crack is a beautiful. It's an exhilarating ride. It really is. No, David's novel Crack is excellent. if I may plug somebody else's work for a minute.
You can, and it is. It's.
I'm sorry,
Andrew's having a little mental
Have
moment.
they gone? Have they gone?
Ian did a review of my crack. No, well, he
Let me check the
did a
sound
review,
testing.
and the
1,
review
2,
was
1,
longer
2.
than the
Are you
book, I think.
recording this?
Oh dear, that's comedy gold, that, I tell you. But no, you're right. Dave's crack is rather good. Yeah.
Yes. I'm blushing here.
Did it
Yeah.
did it stand up to
Dave,
close scrutiny?
oh, definitely,
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in a few weeks' time, Dave's actually got a new book coming out, which is called Time Ripper, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah.
And it's due end of February, is it?
25th.
25th Feb. So we're going to do one of these on the 22nd on Monday. So if you spread the word, please do come and join us. And it's without giving too much away, it's slightly a reworking of Jack the Ripper, and that's about all I'm going to say about it for now. But with the word time tied in with it, you might realise it moves around, doesn't it, Dave?
It's a science fiction time travel thriller.
With Jack the Ripper's backstory, effectively. So, do tune in 22nd of Feb, because, I think that's going to be a bit of a treat, really.
I'd like to hear about that. I'd like to hear what it's about.
Yeah, well, we just need this to build a little bit. I mean, it's still new. We're still finding our way through how to promote it, process it, all those things. We do load it up on YouTube at the moment, unedited. At some point, I'm going to learn how to edit. Because anyone who sits through this for an hour and a half,
May
God
have
help them. But quickly going back to Ian. So you've written 2 noir crime novels set somewhere that no one else, bar Nicholas Montserrat, has written about.
Yeah, Malta.
Malta.
Yeah. I felt absolutely in love with Malta. We went there for like 3 days for my birthday one year. Me, Jude, and we took my middle boy, Ben, and we only had 3 days, but we looked. I fell in love. I think a lot of it was the way that it reminded me of Guernsey, which is where my nan lived for many, many years, and I had the great privilege of spending summer after summer after summer there right up until I was 16. So I was from the age of 3 or 4 till I was 16. I went to Guernsey every year for the summer, and I was let loose. And for a teenager at that time to be let loose on an island was just phenomenal. It was freedom, because there was something to do. Unlike my hometown of Bicester, or where I come from in Birmingham, where I grew up, this was freedom. It was in a very weird way. It felt like I was part of an Enid Blyton book, which probably isn't a good thing to say now, but at the time that's how it felt. So we went to Malta, but the second time we went there, I saw this thing on a road, and it's a incline up that like that, and somebody had spray painted on this, and it's still there apparently, spray painted the opening part to Howl by Allen Ginsberg. And that really got to me, because as Tony knows, Andrew may know, I'm a huge fan of the beat poetry of Ginsberg, of Kerouac, and all that. And to see this particular phrase, I'm looking at it now in my mind's eye, up this hill, and we came out of the hotel and I looked up this hill and the sun seemed to catch it right at the moment where I could see it. I thought, oh my God. So I incorporated that into the first book. A moment in the first book where the detective sits and looks at that and ruminates on whether he would have done the person for graffiti or just let it go because it's so beautiful.
I think let it go because it's so beautiful is the nice answer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, anyway,
I have seen the greatest minds of my generation. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was
destroyed by madness?
There's something that happened today, actually. I was watching, of all things, the 1988 version of the film Hairspray, because my daughter wants to see it. Now, in this, the lead character, Tracy Turnblad, runs into a house to get away from the police. As she does so, she runs into what, in effect, is an artist studio, and there's Piers Zadora and Rick Ocasek of the Cars in there. Yeah. And he sticks his head through a frame of a painting, ruined in the canvas, and is reading from the well-known copy of Hal, which is the black and white cover.
Yeah.
And my daughter Lucy said, you know, Dad, some of these people must have been bloody mad reading something like that. So I leant over and got from my own bookshelf. I said, here you are. I paid $6.95 for that. When I was at Liverpool University. And
that one.
She goes, how do you relate to that? And I said, well, you've got to like look at it a different way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Jack Kerouac. I mean, I'm not saying you necessarily have to get stoned to appreciate Jack Kerouac or get absolutely loaded. Well, no, what it was I actually saw there was more attraction in being someone like Dean Cassidy than there was in being Andrew Hesford. I mean, getting the 20 bus from Kirby to Liverpool to go to work, or you could get this bus and go nowhere. Yeah. You know, and meet all these women and stuff like that. You know, I would have given anything to be him, really.
Kerouac played a big part of my backpacking around America. I got to New York, and this is a true story. I got to New York, and I was there for a while, obviously, doing what I was doing. And before other things happened in between, and I thought, no, it's time now to move on to where I want to go to next, which was up to Canada via Rochester and Buffalo. And I went into this bookshop before going to this party on the night at a great bar called Harry's Hula Hut. And I went into this bookshop and I went to buy another book, but this book fell off the shelf above it, and I picked it up, and it was by design or by fortune, I don't know, but it was On the Road. And I thought, no, sorry, because I've heard Marillion or Fish talk about Kerouac in one of his songs, I'm going to finally read On the Road. So I was about 21 at this point, and I took that book all around America with me. And Kerouac just got completely into my head like Ginsberg did. And don't get me wrong, I'm a deep lover of many English or British poets. I mean, Roger McGough, Liverpool's Roger McGough, is a firm favourite of mine. As a human being, he is, without a shadow of doubt, exceptional. But the American beat poets really got into me, and I think probably inflicted themselves onto my writing.
Oh, they definitely have in part, haven't they? Yeah. I mean, Roger McGough invented the word efficacious that all these scientists are nicking now.
Yeah. To be fair to Roger, I've met him several times. You know, handshake. Can you sign this, please? And he did a gig up at the Philharmonic, not in the hall, but in the music rooms there one night. And I patiently waited to get this new book signed by him. And he went, "Hello, Ian, how are you?" And I thought, you know what, I'm going to love you forever just for the fact that you remember my name. And that was a big plus to me. It really was.
Yeah, Lily the Pink, in case you don't remember. Most efficacious in every way. Yeah.
Yeah.
1967.
Because I thought I recognised it.
Yeah.
Well,
I drink to Lily the Pink, the Pink.
I still like, you know, he did a song called Ex-Art Student.
Yeah.
That's on the Goff and McGear album, which I sent you a copy of, Ian, you might recall.
Yeah.
And this particular song is done as like sort of almost like it's like found objects. It's meant to be vaguely like musical Marcel Duchamp. But what has happened was that this song also included a couple of, in fact, I've got it here. It's on this album. Anyway, I've got it here. But Ex-Art Student contains not only Mike McGear's brother Paul, you might have heard of him, but also
he nearly ran me over once.
Well, there you are. And you know, he doesn't. I don't know if he's mentioned it to us, but Jimi Hendrix is also on it as well.
Right.
And there seems to be this like sort of general thing of when you've got Graham Nash and the part of the Hollies and all sorts of people on this track, it's bound to get weird. It's one of those things. But Ex-Art Student is, and there's one book. There's a song called Yellow Book on this, which I think Roger McGough may have had some input into. Yellow Books being those vaguely pornographic novels they had around in the later 19th. And You know, Yellow Book's absolutely wonderful as a piece of work. You know, I love it. But there's also Summer with Monica is on this.
Oh
which,
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Summer with Monica is like this long sort of piece which Andy Roberts has some input into and plays guitar on. But I used to love the stories that Roger McGough would tell. You know, like he was telling a story about two lovers not attending to what was going on in the world around them. 10 milk bottles lying on the step. 10 milk bottles, milk is turning dead. You know, 10 milk bottles. What are all these 10 milk bottles turning into cheese? You know, I quite like that because it's like he has a inflection in his voice which is real. It's not affected. I've always thought he was the poet laureate we've never had.
He should have been. He should have been. I mean, don't get me wrong. I met Andrew Motion once. Tremendously lovely man to meet. I knew Simon Armitage. I got to speak to him on several occasions, and
he will come back. I've got him booked on a retainer to do an event for me.
Great guy.
When he
incredible guy.
Come. Yeah.
But I'd rather have seen at some point Roger McGough do it. He should have been. He would have injected a humour that's been missing.
Well, Roger McGough was once also, wasn't he mentored by Philip Larkin at the University of Hull? Yeah. Well, Philip Larkin, my daughter's been studying Philip Larkin, and I said, "Have you ever read this Be the Verse?" And she goes, "Oh, we haven't covered that." I thought maybe I shouldn't ask her to. It's the one that says they fuck you up, your mum and dad. They do.
Mum and dad, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the one about sexual intercourse began for me between the Profumo affair and the Beatles' first LP.
Yeah.
And I said about that, and I said, your mum loves Roger McGough, and he was once the mentor for Roger McGough at the library of the University of Hull. And she goes, "How come you know all this stuff, Dad?" I said, I don't know. I don't know why I know it. You know, it's just over a period of time. Maybe the studies have piled up and you make connections. You know?
Yeah, well, that's the point, isn't it? Connections. That is the point.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, what we're going to do is let Alban and Julie ask a question because they've been sat here really nicely listening away quietly. But I think they should join in. They should join in. Alban, come on.
I was just enjoying eavesdropping. I was enjoying the crack, if you'll forgive the pun. I always feel very ignorant and embarrassed about my musical tastes. But because the last gig I went to was Nana Mouskouri, and I was in love with Nana Mouskouri. And at this gig, she'd aged a bit and turned into a grumpy old diva. And up the prices of her LPs and the merchandise which went with it. So I suppose my question would be is, you've done loads and loads of reviews. Have you done things that people have come around to break your windows for afterwards?
That's a great question.
That they haven't liked.
Thankfully, no. But I probably sailed very close to the wind with Green Day.
Right.
I like Green Day. Good 21st century punk type of thing like that. I like it. But they did a series of albums called Unos Dos Tres within 3 months of each other. So 1 month, or 6 weeks apart, or anything, something like that. And it was impossible to like.
Yeah.
I had to be honest, and I'm not a critic. I'm a reviewer. I don't criticize. This is the point of emotion. I feel the emotion of something, and I try to pass that on. But this set of, I mean, when you consider that 21st Century Breakdown and it's the predecessing album were phenomenal. These three albums, there was about 14 or so tracks on each album, and if they had 4 good tracks across all 3 albums, then you were fortunate. And I actually said that, and I'm thankful that probably nobody from that side read it, to be honest with you. But I had to say, honestly, that it was awful. And I know the reason why now, because Billy Joe was on there very much. Yeah, well, I know that Billy Joel was quite ill. I found out since that Billy Joel was quite ill during recording or just after. And I think and trying to top 21st Century Breakdown, impossible, and so I felt bad about doing it, but I had to be true to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always thought that about you know, Guns N' Roses brought out Appetite for Destruction, and it was like the most phenomenal debut album ever.
I bought that on the day it came out.
Yeah.
And then I think it was within a week and a half or 2 weeks they had to change the cover.
Change the cover, yeah. I had the original,
and I still got the original cover. Yeah.
But then they brought out the Use Your Illusion albums. Both albums had about 16 or 17 tracks on each. But if you listen to them as individual albums, they're not fantastic. But if you merged them together and got the best out of the both songs, best out of the both albums, you'd have had another Appetite for Destruction. But they didn't do it, and it's sort of...
It smacks of contractual obligation, that though, doesn't it?
It does.
Like,
Lou Reed did that with White Noise.
Yeah. I can only think of 2 or 3 bands that have successfully released 2 albums or even 3 within a year. And one of them was Queen. Back in the 70s, they released 2 albums within a year. Genesis did it as well. And they're good, solid albums. But I mean, if, say, for example, Maiden were to do that, or even, you know, Marillion were to do that, I don't think I'd enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think what it is with the length of an album.
If you have to do 2 albums in a year, no matter which artist or something, you are forced to write your songs really quickly. And also some of the process of thinking or inventing the numbers or creating the numbers, it's gone.
Yeah.
Because it's not spontaneous anymore. You need to deliver a product at a certain date.
If you think about the way Elton John worked in the 70s, he was producing 2 or 3 albums a year.
Yeah.
But that was a contract, wasn't it?
It was the contract.
Didn't he have to deliver 10 albums or something within a certain time frame?
Yeah.
Well, what happened was that I think he had his first album was out 69. 70 he did the Elton John album and Tumbleweed Connection. And people said, oh, it's a brand new collection of songs. And he said, well, I had half of that in the can while we were recording Empty Sky, the first album. So what it was basically, in order to satisfy the contract, he had to go back and say, oh, hang on, it wasn't quite polished, we'll do it again. And he did an awful lot of albums like that until he was able to sign himself to his own label. And then the moment he did that, put us a double album and didn't put anything out for 2 years.
A friend of mine designed the art for that. A friend of mine did the artwork for it. Ian Beck was a friend of mine,
Blue Moon.
I played that album as one of the things.
Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, sorry.
Right? Yeah. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is one of the finest albums ever created. I must admit, I adore that album.
I love it.
If you go on Facebook, my friend Ian Beck is still there doing, and he did the artwork for that and loads of albums. He's a great guy. Yeah.
But the thing is, with the Elton John stuff, it was his best stuff, because I think when he got out of that contract and started doing his own stuff, sort of like towards the end of the 70s and the early 80s, and he went really poppy, I stopped listening to him at that point.
Yeah.
It's only the early 70s albums that I listened to.
The occasional single was excellent. I really did like I'm Still Standing.
Yeah.
Because of what it represented at the time. But an awful lot, I mean, I've seen him in concert, and again, I don't want to say legendary, but it's wonderful to watch. But I didn't buy any of the albums after 85, 86.
Yeah. Yeah, you just went,
and yet there were still some tracks with investigation. You just had to look for them harder, and you ended up buying an album to listen to maybe 1 or 2 things you might like to listen to.
Yeah. So come on, Julie, we're going to put you on the spot now. You've been really well behaved all night.
Hello, Julie.
Hi. So my question is, did you ever see a support band that made you think, wow?
Yes. Many times. Thunder was one. Dead Like Harry. I don't think they're going anymore. They were a band from Sheffield. I went to see Alana Miles in The Robin, funnily enough. And the support act was a band called Dead Like Harry. And at some point, I'm going to put the CD on to play on my year thing. And it was just incredible. but it's also twofold because 1990 I got asked to see brain's gone dead, frontman of Led Zeppelin,
Robert Plant.
Robert Plant, on his big log tour. I'm not a Led Zeppelin fan. Forgive me, I like 2 songs by them. I just don't like them.
I'm the same.
But I went along, and it was Alana Miles, funnily enough, who was support to him, and I really loved her. So it was quite surprising in that way. But I've done. There's been lots over the years.
You can kind of see a connection between Black Velvet and Big Log. You know, in terms of the Americana kind of thing.
Yeah. You
can kind of see they occupy the same headspace.
Yeah. But Alana Miles was great. But there was I'm trying to think of anything else, but say again.
Like the route that Robert Plant went afterwards, after the big, he started doing a lot of country stuff, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, I grew up in Birmingham in the 70s, and then moved to Bicester. And when everybody finds out that you're really like your heavy rock and stuff like that, oh, you're from Birmingham, you must like Led Zeppelin. No, sorry, no, I don't. Give me. Well, at that time it was, aside from Marillion, obviously, I was more Maiden, Magnum, for example. Anything like that. But Led Zeppelin. He'll probably when Alban was asking about anybody throwing a brick through a window, I'll probably have Jimmy Page now throwing a brick through my window for not liking Led Zeppelin.
He'll come up with a hex on you.
Yeah. But there's been lots. There's been lots, Julie.
Mike, have you got a question you'd like to ask Ian? Because you know him in a different way. From gigs and things.
Yeah. Oh, well, maybe. What gig would you have liked to have gone to, but didn't go, or found out too late, or was too young, or whatever?
The big one I would have liked to have done, and I've written a very short story about it, which appeared in. Hang on, I've got to get my book out now. Hang on. In Tales from the Adderneck House, it appeared in there, a short story, and it would have been Woodstock. I would have loved to have been at Woodstock. I would have done. I wouldn't have done the hard stuff, but I would have done everything else on the day. And me and my dear friend Laura, who I've known since forever, she's of the opinion that if we'd have gone, because we're both old hippies, as it were, if we'd have gone, I would have come back, but she wouldn't have done. She would have lost control completely had she gone. But Woodstock as an event, I would have loved to have done. I would have loved to have seen. Well, I've seen the Who, but I would like to have seen the Who in their pomp in the 70s. To be honest, I would have liked to have done any gig between 1993 and 1999, where I was only allowed to do one gig a year because my ex-wife didn't want me going to gigs. So I would like to have seen a lot of gigs in that 6-year period. To be honest with you, you can't go to that gig. You can't go to that gig. You've got things to do. You must work.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah.
No, I think you were married to the same woman I was married to in that period.
I don't know, because that would have made one of us.
I think I might have dabbled there too.
But I got to see a lot of bands. I think I reviewed 1,400 odd bands or 1,400 odd gigs in my time of reviewing bands. So I can't say I missed out, because I've seen stuff that other people wouldn't have done. Some gigs stick more in the mind than others. Roger Waters, for example, the first time I saw Roger Waters, I visibly cried. I'm on a Marillion video in Canada, absolutely weeping my eyes out at the end of a song, and the camera is on me, and I look at the first time I saw it, and I'm slightly embarrassed that I'm caught. Now I look back at that thinking, actually, that's pretty cool. I'm caught on camera showing emotion. And that was cool to see Muralian, you know, in a country that I do love, because my grandfather was came from there.
Well, that's where your Tales from the Adanac House comes in, which is Canada backwards, isn't it?
It is, yeah. When my granddad, and that family, the Halls, as it were, came back to England in '37. Great timing, the Hall family tried to escape the Canadian recession and come back to England just in time for World War II. Great timing. But he bought the house off my great nan on my nan's side. So he moved into this house, bought it off her, and immediately renamed it Adanac. And it was in Selly Park in Birmingham, and I lived directly opposite. So as soon as I closed the door every day, or I was going to school, the first thing I would see was Adanac. So, and he was the one who really installed a love of literature into my head, because I wasn't, right up until the 4th year of junior school, I didn't particularly like school. I hated school. I went to school to see friends and to play football at dinner time. That's the only reason I went to school. And then because the teachers were horrendous. 1970s Birmingham, they were awful. Seriously,
I was doing teaching practice in Birmingham in 1970s.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, but they were Selly Park in Birmingham in this particular school. They were dreadful. Mystics came along. She took us in 4th year, and she pulled me aside at the end of the first day, and she said, "Look, Ian, I've seen your reports for the last 3 years, and you're way down the class and everything." She says, "But I know different. I know there's learning in you, and it's just finding the right subjects." And because of her, I got to take my 11 plus. I think it was 2 of us in the class in the year that got to take the 11 plus, and I was one of them. Not that means anything now, but it was at that time. It was, oh, I can do this. But the previous 3 years, I've been made to feel a fool because it was stuff I didn't want to do. I hate maths. I know my angles from playing pool and snooker. I know how to subtract by playing darts, but I hate maths. But give me English and history and drama and things like that, and you've got my attention. You give me music, you got my attention. But it was just that whole. I think this is why I like the Pink Floyd album, The Wall. When I first heard the song when it came out in 1979, I fell immediately for the "Hey Teacher, Leave Those Kids Alone." And something must have resonated in my psyche, as if to say, you know what, I really hate school.
You wonder if Gavin Williamson's ever been played it. You know, the education secretary.
Yeah,
he's not very popular with any teachers or parents at the moment, is he? For sure. See, Alban knows.
But if it wasn't for Mystics, I wouldn't have survived school. I wouldn't have gone on to senior school to do what I did. But
that's a lovely thing to say.
I'm with you, Ian. I had some terrible teachers in school as well.
Hey,
not in Birmingham, I guess.
No. Alban taught Dave in his first year, I think.
Well,
I can't speak for the rest of the country.
I was told by a headmaster that there's no point in wanting anything more out of life because, and he pointed towards the Kirby Industrial Estate, we train people to go and work there. And you could just about see underneath the word comprehensive, the word secondary modern. So, you know, that was how he made us feel at school. And I thought, well, up yours, mate. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm taking a run.
We had a very awful
hold on. Sorry, go on.
We had a very awful careers teacher at Bicester School. And at my last year, I really wanted to either be do acting or writing or something like that. And he looked at me and said, "You're not good for anything except for joining the army, and that is what I recommend you do." And along with another teacher, I had a bad time at this. I had a teacher who sent me in my report card in 5th year. I love reading Ian's poetry, but he's got to remember that he's never going to make any money from it. I received this in the post because I left school on my 16th birthday. I only went in for exams. I looked at that report and I walked 3 miles back to school that morning. I slammed it on her desk and forgive the vernacular. I said, that's not the point. And I walked out, leaving the report card behind. She sent it me back and I've still got it. But it was, what?
Quite right too. Send her a poem.
The whole point of what I write is not, well, was never, I never intended it to make money. It was to keep my soul pure. But I could not convey that at that time, so I just swore at her.
I'm going to have to jump out.
Yeah, don't worry, Dave. No worries. We're about done now anyway. So, funny enough,
lovely to see you, Dave.
Next week. Ian, I'll probably speak to you tomorrow when you put an album up.
Okay, lovely to speak to you and finally see your face moving, Dave. Thank you.
See you, Dave.
So, funnily, you just talking about.
I'll speak to you soon.
Take care, Dave.
Take care.
Cheers, Andy.
Bye, Dave.
Funny you talking about making your soul pure and birthdays and things, because your last song pick is quite a clever tying everything up in one go, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So go on, tell us
okay. I'm, as you probably gathered, I am not a religious man by any stretch of the imagination. I'd rather flick through the Gospel, Marillion, Genesis, Pink Floyd, and Rush than Mark, John, and whoever. But
and Genesis.
I do, exactly. I do believe in like a spiritual side. I'm an old hippie type of thing. And when I've said about when I was born to England when in the cricket. I was born during a thunderstorm, but I think the best thing that could have happened on the day I was born was that George Harrison was #1. And it appears on the Apple label. So there's your connection. And it's My Sweet Lord.
So we're going to have a listen to this and then we can say our goodbye. So enjoy this for a minute or two and then we'll be back. Singing there.
I was.
Were you singing away?
Yeah.
We all were.
Absolutely brilliant, beautiful song, wasn't it? So the other person who's not asked a real question is my mate George, who had to fill in for
I've
the
got
first 10
loads.
minutes.
Waiting for the right time.
Oh, hello, George.
No, I was going to make a comment because earlier on you were talking about, watching gigs over the internet, and it's just like watching telly. It got me thinking about probably the greatest. Well, I think it is the greatest video of a concert ever done. And I know that's a very bold sort of statement. And it's the Talking Heads, Stop Making Sense. I saw that.
I like
in the
Talking
cinema.
Heads. I've never seen it.
I saw that in the cinema when it first came out in 1985, I think it was. And we were sat sort of fairly close up. And oh my God, it was like we were actually at the gig itself. But also talking about, when you were seeing the roadies sort of not destroying the set, but taking the set down at the end of the gig that you'd seen on. I can't remember who it was. I should have written it down, I'm afraid. But it's in reverse, and it's a real state breaker, because if you think about it, when you go to a gig, what do you expect to see when you first go in? You expect to see the band set up, you expect to see everything on stage, the lighting and all that. And it just starts off with a totally empty stage. I tell you what, the road crew really earned their money during that tour, you know, having roaded for Hawkwind a few years ago as well. So I kind of get what they're doing. But, you know, it just starts off with that empty stage and builds song after song. If you ever get a chance to see it on a, you know, in a movie theatre or the cinema, do get a chance to see it there, because it is just astonishing.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I've always wanted to.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to. I just never have had the opportunity. I do like Talking Heads, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Road to Nowhere is an incredible song, and all the others in between are rather artistically they're superb. I just have never seen that gig.
You can get it on YouTube. I'd go with everything George says. It's an experience of watching something rather than thinking of it as a live gig, isn't it?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it was just astonishing. And then the other thing I was thinking about, you were saying about going to or wanting to have seen Woodstock.
Yeah.
Well, a friend of ours, Julie, John Laval, and Richard Bandler were both at Woodstock, and just said, you know, it was amazing. He says, but really, anybody that says they remembered being there weren't.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say I would have probably tried everything apart from Morris dancing that day.
Yeah.
To be honest, if I'd have gone. The idea of snotty hankies doesn't appeal, but I would have gone there just to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, you were saying before about bands, releasing 2 or 3 albums in a year, and you couldn't really think of any others that would sort of fit the bill. And then it got me thinking. Actually, 1972. I think it was 1972, early 73. Hawkwind actually released. It was In Search of Space, Do Re Mi, A Space Ritual, and they were also on Greasy Truckers Party, and I think Glastonbury Fair was released the year before. So there was all this sort of so many albums released.
Yeah.
And some really good albums.
And they, like Queen during that 75, 76 period, or 77, are the exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. Because, again, it's like you can write 3 or 4 books in a year, but you shouldn't be publishing more than 2 if you know, or what, even 1. You can if you want, but it's...
You're not Barbara Cartman.
You want them... Yeah, you're not... Oh, God, no. Absolutely not. No, you know. But no, it's just that whole Green Day period, mate. I really like them as a band.
Yeah. But
that Undust Trust just, I can't think of a more better word than irritated.
Anyway, listen, guys, listen. I'm going to stop recording now because we've been recording for a long time.